1.
All right. Welcome. Sorry. Welcome to the October 25th, 2021 Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee will be conducted via remote means. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, the members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning into Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in public meetings, please email your question, comment prior to or during the meeting at jstrauss@northandovermath.gov, jstrauss@northandoverma.gov. The question comment will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. With that, I will call the meeting to order. And I guess we need to take attendance. We should take attendance.
Yes.
So, all right. I don't have a master list.
That's all right. I will, do you want me to help you out with that, John?
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll just call people out and we'll just start with you and Meredith as the chair, vice chair. So Jonathan Strauss.
Here.
Okay, Meredith Barnes-Cook.
Here.
Kelly Cormier.
Here.
Chris Nobley.
Here.
James Dowd.
Here.
Holly Williams.
Here.
George Kaler.
Here.
And Sean McDonough.
Here.
All right.
We're missing somebody. We're missing Stan Limpert. So Stan Limpert, not here at the moment. Don't know if he plans on attending. So we'll look out for him. And then, John, we do need someone to, this is my favorite question every meeting. So if someone could pick up the meeting minutes, that'd be great. Jay graciously did them last time. So I could say he's off the hook this time.
I'll do them.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Meredith. Hopefully this should be relatively quick, I would imagine, but we'll see how it goes. Andrew, I'll check with you, but I have not received any public comments to date.
None came to me.
Okay.
So.
All right. So we'll move forward on that. First up is approval of the meeting minutes from September 13th, 2021. I don't know if you all got a chance to read them or not, but we'll need a motion to accept them as written.
Well, I'll make the motion. I wasn't present, but I did watch the video of the meeting, so I feel like, I was sort of there.
And I'll second.
Okay.
Maybe that'll look funny in the minutes, but anyway, I just spoke up because there was silence, and as I said, I did watch the video.
Okay. All right. So motion's been made to accept the meetings, the minutes. Sorry. All those in favor?
Okay, John. Here's all you got to do is I can do it if you'd rather me, but I would go around and just call on each person individually because in the remote format, people just need to hear that each person.
That's true. That's true. Sorry, new guy. Shows how much I was paying attention earlier. Credit to Kelly. All right. Jay Dowd.
Yes.
Chris Nobley.
Yes.
Meredith Barnes-Cook.
Yes.
Holly Williams.
Yes.
George Kaler.
Yes.
Kelly Cormier.
Yes.
And Who am I missing?
Sean,
Oh, John.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All
and
right.
yourself, John.
And I vote as yay as well, for the record. All right. Cool. All right. Again, just going through the agenda here. So I had first item was under new business was, and it's more for informational purposes, but the design public hearing for the Route 114 corridor is being presented Thursday night virtually. And the agenda has a link to that. If you haven't, I'm not sure if you have to register in advance for it or not, but that's the one where basically for informational purposes for this group, if you want to tune in, that's where they're going to present their current 25% design for the corridor. And it represents the prime opportunity for interested parties to review and offer feedback and ask questions of the state. This is the big juncture where if they need to make any types of changes, this is where they want to do it, because once they're past this meeting, then they start really advancing the design and formalizing and finalizing what they're going to do. So, and that again, the intention here is for those who want to find out what's going on, see how what they're proposing relates to what we are doing as far as how does that fit into our master plan goals and strategies, primarily obviously from a transportation standpoint. So
John, can I make a quick comment?
sure.
Just you mentioned you don't know if you have to register ahead of time. You do. It is a Zoom session, so they do ask that you register. And then I just in the chat I just provided a link to the project page, which for the folks listening at home will be provided. The town will be pushing this out via social media and other means, and it does provide some documentation there now. I don't know if this was the original link, but there is some documentation there now that you can review ahead of the meeting. So.
And like I said, usually what they'll do, and again, with being virtual, I'm not sure how it changes, but usually at these type of meetings, they usually show up with a whole, like an entire roll plan of the entire corridor for you to examine. So I'm sure they'll presumably walk you through it piece by piece. So you'll see what they're doing at every intersection. What are they doing for line, for pavement markings, signalization, and whatnot. So again, if you're available and you want to tune in, I encourage you to do so.
John, what's a role plan?
So basically, instead of a set of blueprints, it's one really, really long blueprint. So it's the entire project exactly in one long roll. So, sometimes we'll break it up into long sheets, but they'll present the entire corridor to you, so you can see everything all at once. So,
John, when this was initially discussed, now going back almost 2 years ago at Merrimack, they rolled that out, and it was actually very helpful to see it. It gave you a real sense of the scale of it, and it kind of wound around. I think, Andrew, that you were there too, like wound around 2 tables. It was gigantic, but it was very helpful to really discuss the flow and the impact on neighborhoods and access to it. So
you'll see the intersection. You should, based off of my experience, you'll see what they're planning for lane configurations. You'll see what they have planned for shared use path. You'll see what they have for sidewalk, buffer strips, all that stuff. You'll see how they want to tie all existing driveways in. And that, again, is the chance for homeowners who abut the project to see how is this, if I don't already know, how is this going to directly affect my property? So it's a real informative session. And even if you've never been to, if you haven't been to one before, and you tune in for a little bit, you'll learn a lot about the process. because again, we have 114, 125, 133, they're all in town. There's always potential for MassDOT to do other projects in the future that whether they're directly in town or they abut town, at least you'll have an idea for how the process goes a little bit. So that's unless anybody has any questions relative to that, I'll move on to the next item. No? Okay, sweet. All right, so then the next thing I had on here was discussion relative to Facilities Master Plan 2. And so there's so at the last, and I might lean on Chris here a little bit, because at the last select board meeting, apparently from what I read in the agenda and the meeting notes, there was an update presented by the town manager relative to that. And I don't have all the details, so I know part of that touched up on the upcoming school capacity public forums, and I just didn't know if there was anything additional to that, or I don't know, Chris, if you can just give us a quick update as to that. I think you muted.
Sorry. I think it was really more, and Andrew, you can certainly edify here, but it generally was kind of an overview of what's coming together. There wasn't really a lot of specifics. It was just, this is something that's coming together. At our upcoming meeting, we are thinking about trying to bring the school committee together in front of the select board to go through that in more detail, but there weren't really specifics addressed other than it's going to include not just the schools, but the fire and youth center. It was kind of just the highlights, right, Andrew?
Yeah, and I have to admit that I'm a little bit on the outside looking in on this project as well. But what we can do is at some point, I can talk to the town manager about whether or not this is something, when there's more details behind it, if it's something that the planning committee or a representative of the planning committee could address this board, and then we could decide how we want to proceed from there as far as what information is provided. So I know that they've just gotten started on this process, and I know that the link you provided, John, in the agenda, I think is an initial set of public meetings that are school focused on the facilities master planning process.
And I have a question relative to those, and I don't know who's best to answer it, but I know they're having a series of forums at the different schools. I think eventually they're going to have one at the select board. Are they all dealing with the same topic, or are like, if we're talking, say, the Atkinson School, is that focusing strictly on that building, or are that's just being held there in an overall discussion?
Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
I asked the same question, John, and I was told it's the same content at each meeting. They're just meeting at each school to help make it easier for parents to attend various times, various locations.
That's kind of what I thought, but I just wanted to kind of confirm that.
Yeah, I had the same question.
I could see people asking that question. So the more we can get that out in the public, the better off we all are, I assume. So, all right.
Can I ask a naive question? What is ABECC?
The Ann Bradstreet Early Childhood Center, the new kindergarten.
The
essentially.
preschool and the preschool
and kindergarten next to Atkinson.
Oh, okay. And I'm sorry, what was the A again?
Ann. ANNE.
Oh, Ann. Oh, the first name.
Yes.
Go Bulldogs.
Thank you.
So the only comment I'd have on that, John, sorry, is just
Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
and I've asked a million questions. I'm still not 100% clear, and I've sat in meetings with other people about this. The youth center is in the discussion with that in the school wrap up, and the youth center is slated for a December meeting. And I only bring that up in the vein of, it was cited by Sean and I as one of the top priorities for our bucket of items. So I don't know how that impacts or where the time frame slots the expansion of the youth center if it gets put in with the school project. So just kind of a footnote there on that.
I'll just respond by saying, I think what John is saying when he talked about this at the outset of it being with the schools, just meaning that this particular facilities planning process, facilities master plan 2, addresses these schools, and in addition to that, addresses a fire station and the youth center. So,
Right.
so long story short, yes, it does. And I don't know. I guess the question ends up remaining like where within that sequence of buildings does the youth center go? And I don't know yet. And maybe that's part of the facilities planning process in and of itself.
Yeah, and that was my question, Andrew, because it's my understanding it's Fire Station 2, the elementaries, middle, and the youth center are all kind of, even though it's being listed as the school expansion project, they're kind of, Fire Station 2 and the youth center are part of that bigger scope, if you will, even though it's being titled the school expansion project. That's the only reason why I wanted to put a little more.
I think it would be fair to characterize this all comes up under master plan 2, and really it's still to be determined, finalized, what the sequence is of this. Some of that's really dependent upon financing as well as community appetite for this. So, but certainly there are things that would appear as they're coming together now to be probably more immediate priorities and preferences among the community. So again, that's where kind of your involvement, the community of the Master Plan Implementation Committee is, I think, particularly valuable right now.
Chris, if I can, has a consultant been hired to conduct to get the plan going at this point, or is there still like an RFP out for it?
Andrew?
Yeah, there is a consultant. I'm forgetting who it is, but to answer your question, yes.
Okay.
A consultant's been procured and they're already on board.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my arms around where we are at the process. So, because I've seen it come up in a lot of facilities master plan 2, but not a lot of details or whatnot about it. So I'm just trying to get informational purposes here. So.
Yeah, I think the fair thing to characterize it is it's beginning, but it's moving really fast.
Yes.
Because this all has to be really vetted out for town meeting. And that's not that far away, as we all know. So
is the intent to have it in place to vote upon for town meeting?
There are some components that certainly could be part of it because of our process, which involves design first and so forth. So this is, it's underway to make some decisions. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Just following up on what we touched on the last meeting, and I don't know, if it falls, I don't think it falls under master plan 2. I don't know if it comes under the original master plan. Relative to the recreational complex, is there any update we can get provided for? Is there anyone that be had or shared at this point, or is that still under discussion, I should say?
Yeah, I think we're going to be hard pressed to get any substantive update on that, not because of anybody's desire not to, but it's just we're just still in this litigation process. So I think it's those issues. But hopefully we're moving fast towards rectifying all that, and we'll be on the ground running. Hopefully,
I know we touched base on it in the last meeting. I just want to follow up on it, see if there was any movement or whatnot. So
I saw they said a decaying bleachers. One of them anyway got knocked down. So the danger zone.
The danger zone. Yeah.
Oh, when we get through as you say, we're the last piece of litigation is there, but there's certainly thought and organization about putting out bid documents again and so forth. So it's all being lined up so that as soon as that we've got that hurdle cleared, we can move back into right back into the groove. There are obviously some considerations about timing now with just the cost of things on top of it. But the town manager, and I think Andrew is, are aware of this, and there's a lot of prep that's going in place for us to spring back to where we were 2 years ago,
Mm.
because that's really what's happened. It's just been frozen since then. But all the money's there. It's ready to go, and that's it.
Wow.
All right. Like I said, just yeah, it's sitting there. So yeah, I think we all want to see it built. So, all right. Next thing on the agenda was an update relative to the Community Preservation Committee. They have a November open meeting scheduled, and I think maybe this might be something for Andrew or Dan.
Yeah, I can speak to that.
Okay.
Unless you had more to say.
No, so the only thing I did in reading through, I did note that there was some discussion relative to getting funding for the potential, for the rail trail. And I know that we spoke about that at previous meetings, and obviously that plays into something that we've reviewed relative to the master plan. And I don't know if that's the only thing that's pertinent to our discussion, if there's other items within that, that meeting that we should be in tune with. So I open it to you.
So
Yeah.
I'm sorry not to interrupt. I had actually reached out to Jean because through my digging up, I was trying to find out where it landed with the rail trail, and all the roads kind of led to Jean Enright, who I see is on the call now, that she had a bunch of information on this. So I don't know, Dan, I reached out to Jean prior to the last meeting to bring this up as a specific discussion point for more information on the rail trail. Were you able to touch base with her, Daniel, or?
Yeah. So okay. I guess we'll start with the rail trail and then move into CPC. The CPC provided money that would match a grant that was supposed to fund engineering design of the rail trail. We did not get the grant that the CPC money was supposed to match. And so we went to CPC earlier this month, asking if we could use what was supposed to be matching funds to pursue another process for moving the rail trail project further forward. So this wouldn't be design engineering for the entire rail trail. It would, because it's a smaller amount of money, it would be an initial process with, like deed research and looking at possible alternatives, as well as some conceptual design. We have not initiated that yet. I'm waiting on, the CPC was fine with using the money for that. I'm waiting on town council's input on, whether or not that's okay to like slightly change the use of CPC funds. So that's where that hangs, and there's not a clear ask that we would have related to the rail trail for the CPC this upcoming cycle related to the rail trail. It would definitely start with this other process, which involves basically demonstrating, going to MassDOT and saying we have this idea for a project, outlining some information and saying this is why we need this project related to regional transportation goals. And it's a years long process where you give them more information over time, you do more design engineering over time, and in theory later on, MassDOT, if they agree that this project is needed, will fund construction of the project. So high end payoff, but slower process, smaller steps first. Does that answer your question?
I just had a follow-up or two. How
Sure.
much was the grant that they were seeking? What was the value of it? Monetary.
All right, we asked, the CPC was asked for $30,900, which was like a 27% match to, I think, like 83,000 was what the state was asked for. It was a DCR grant.
And did they state like why it was rejected? Were there certain criteria that they indicated we didn't meet to receive that grant? Or those grants?
That's not typical. We did follow up and there's a few things, but they didn't give us a specific reason for our project.
Yeah.
But this past year, DCR was prioritizing construction projects that are ready to be built, which this was not. This is design engineering.
Yeah.
There was also more applicants than there have been in past years, as well as less money in the pot to give out.
Gotcha.
Dan, can I just interject with one other piece of information? So we did have a follow-up discussion with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, our regional planning agency, and they deal with a lot of transportation related issues, including, rail trails. And one piece of feedback that we got from the representative there was just that particular program is typically used for like softer trails, things like grass trails and/or
Gravel.
dust trails, stone dust, yeah, things like that. And whereas what we're trying to do is we're envisioning more of like a 10-foot wide hardscape path. And when we were conferring with another engineer, they were sort of like, well, you probably want to go through the MassDOT process. It's called the TIP, Transportation Infrastructure Project Program, to help get this project moved forward because it's a little more substantial in nature. And so this Mass Trails grant that Dan is referring to it's really used for other recreational trail projects, and the TIP is typically used for these more shared use style paths that we're trying to achieve here.
Gotcha. And what's the distance of the current proposal? Is it like half a mile or so?
1.2, I believe, maybe 1.3.
1.3. Thanks. Thanks for the update.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
So move back to the CPC question, or I guess discussion. They had initially scheduled a public hearing for November. They default to the second Thursday of the month, which we didn't know was a holiday. It's a holiday. It's being pushed forward to the December 2nd. So there will be a December 2nd Community Preservation Committee public hearing. The Community Preservation Committee every year is supposed to assess the needs of the community to understand what types of projects they should fund. They have expressed in the past year that they'd really like to branch out with the types of projects they're seeing people apply for, as well as the applicants who are coming in. There's basically a small list of frequent flyers that are typically requesting funds for similar types of projects. Anyone in the town can apply for a CPC project as long as they're not the direct beneficiary of it. As in, you can't say, buy this thing from me for community preservation purposes. There has to be some other element to it. But essentially, this meeting will be an opportunity for people to come forward and say, I have this idea for a project. What do you think? Or I think the town should be spending more money on this. So this is relevant to all of you because we are prioritizing master plan goals that should be addressed, and is an opportunity to both express that to a body that spends money on projects in town, as well as an opportunity to potentially advance those projects yourself. So December 2nd at 7 p.m. there will be I think it'll be largely in-person meeting. I will be virtual. And you can either send in comments beforehand or come before the body. And there will be applications out before then where you'll see what types of information they're looking for each project. So that'll provide a little bit more background. But I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Mainly, I would encourage folks to go and either bring some ideas or suggest the goals we've prioritized here.
Is there a set of parameters to operate within as far as what types of projects are allowable under CPC?
That is a very big part of CPC, and I should know it off the top of my head, but I do not. CPC projects do have to be used on either open space, recreation, affordable housing, or historic preservation. And the typical, let me see here. Okay. So you can apply for acquisition, creation, preservation, or rehabilitation of open space. So buying a parcel to protect, or in some way developing a park, creating or preserving land. It's all pretty similar, or rehabilitating an existing park. So like improving signs, adding a parking lot, things like that. You can acquire, preserve, or restore historic resources. So you can't create something and say it's a historic resource, like you can't build a statue and say this is memorializing this. You can basically do the same things with recreation as you can with open space. You can build something, create something, acquire something, preserve, a field or something like that, or restore an existing one. And you can do the same thing with community housing. It's a little bit different with community housing. You have a little bit more flexibility, and it gets into some nitty-gritty stuff that I won't go into, but I imagine none of you are planning on developing an affordable housing complex in the near future. So that's probably not what we're looking at right now.
Well,
I mean, George, if you are, I'm happy to provide more information.
I mean, I would say that it's a lot like the open space or recreational space. It's rehabbing or creating, in some sense, affordable housing, getting houses, either existing houses that have rehabbing existing houses, but getting them deed restricted, or supporting a project that will create new housing. Maybe the CPC money doesn't pay for the whole thing, but they have the option. They have the option of supporting affordable housing projects that create affordable housing.
Right. No, I'm not trying to discount the affordable housing part of housing. I just didn't want to. It's treated slightly differently under the legislation, and so I just didn't want to get into the nitty gritty. But certainly, it can be used for things besides developing. Like you can do like first-time home buyer programs where like you pay the difference in a home price so that it's technically affordable, things like that.
Right.
But happy to answer any questions on that. And there'll be more information as the public hearing approaches.
Okay. Is there anything we've identified, and I'm just thinking out loud here, is there anything in the master plan we identified as potential projects that are identified as goals that should be that align with seeking CPC funding?
Other than the rail trail?
And
In addition to the rail trail,
fields.
the rail trail is a big one.
So fields, like acquiring, like Barker Farm, let's say, like the CPC funds to help acquire Barker Farms to turn into fields. But so some of it would be, I think, and Andrew or Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, the open space to do that. I mean, that would be the other big thing. I think that CPC funds that would tie into the master plan.
And I think the other side of the other piece would be to George's point, using the funding to support affordable housing.
Yeah, I was
as well. Could we purchase land, because that's part of the master plan, right? Would that be, I don't know if it would be purchase of land or whatever that would be, or supporting that.
The example I would give is that one of the goals is to create more housing for people earning 30% of AMI or less. And the housing authority, or some people associated with the housing, the executive director and at least one of the directors, is actively pursuing that or considering that for creating or building a building on next to the Fountain Drive buildings. There's vacant land there. They would build the dream is to build a building that would house people earning 30% or less. Now, it's not far enough along. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to get any kind of proposal into the CPC this year. But I would say that it's on the table, and stay tuned. But that would directly support one of the goals. I mean, one of the goals is to develop more housing for people earning 30% of AMI or less. And well,
Okay. No, I mean, obviously, obviously we know we have a need, and potentially this represents one pathway towards possibly achieving that or addressing it. So
yeah, well, yeah, supporting it. I mean, it
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't pay for it.
no. Okay. All right. So it's somewhat within our interests to be involved in, or at least not be involved, but at least partake in that meeting in some fashion, just to see where it goes, or and if anything gets proposed that lines up with what we've been tasked to oversee. So
Is there some input or support that we could have running our framework against something to kind of, like we've done for other things, just to kind of go? And I'm not sure. I'm just bringing it up.
Well, I think
Right, John,
eventually, yes, that the very definite possibility. But this sounds like it's a first meeting to kind of scope out what's coming down the pike in the terms of proposals. And I think it's much too early for us to have any kind of comment like that. I think.
Right, yeah.
So before, can I just interject with one thing? And this is actually directed at Dan. So Dan, is the CPC actively, or will they be actively soliciting feedback from either members of the public or boards and commissions in town about the plan priorities, like the CPC plan?
So they will be seeking feedback on, they want to hear what people think is important. They're not seeking feedback on particular projects or types of projects. They will also be providing feedback on project ideas. So
Okay.
it's early stages. They're just trying to get input before they have to consider which projects to fund.
Does any of this tie into town meeting? Will they be prepping to position anything for town approval? Or no?
And yeah, all the projects have to be approved, right, Dan?
Yeah, so typically they have people apply for funding, and in March they vote on whether or not each application will be recommended by the CPC, and then those go to town meeting and typically get funded. They don't typically recommend every project that comes before them.
Okay.
But yeah, the applications are going to be out soon, and you'll be able to see what's on them, and those are usually due first week of February.
Sounds like we talked about a few things that are all racing to the same town meeting finish line is all. So this sounds like it already has its own predefined timeline.
Yep.
yeah, okay. Yeah, because and the only thing I had as a follow-up, Dan, was back on the rail trail discussion real quick. So are you definitely pursuing that via TIP funding at this juncture?
Andrew, can you speak to this a little bit?
You're asking, John, if the rail trail will be TIP funding?
Yeah.
So right now, what we're trying to do is we just want to, there's an initial scope from Stantec, an engineer that's worked on many rail trail projects, to do some initial work for us to start the TIP process.
Okay.
So it's called a project initiation form, PIN, I think. And so the best way I can describe it is that it's going to be a very iterative process. Like, whereas we came to the CPC last year thinking, oh, we will ask the CPC to match a grant that we'll pursue for mass trails, get this, the total amount of money through the grant and the CPC funding, design the project, and we'll be on our merry way. It turns out it's a little more complicated than that. So we're like sort of backtracking a little bit, working with an engineer that's got a lot of experience pushing rail trail projects forward, and they really encouraged us to go through the TIP process. So long-winded way of saying, yes, we will eventually be going through the TIP process, but we're only in these initial stages right now where we're working with an engineer to do the initial design development to get it into the project notification queue. So that's what we're going to do right now.
Okay. No, I'm familiar with the process as it refers to like roadway construction. So, I that's why I was asking, because I assume it's fairly similar to building a rail trail. It's the same construction process. So, all right.
If you don't mind me asking, how long is the process? Did I hear somebody say a year earlier?
No, it's gonna be way longer than a year. Okay. So, are you asking when we'll see a rail trail actually constructed?
Well, that was going to be a follow-up question, but just the process for tips. But when would we see at least ground broken, all things reasonably considered? Not best case scenario, but understanding the ups and downs of the process.
Yeah, I'm thinking like.
We're all going to hold you to it, Andrew.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Well,
listen.
you're not going to like an answer. It's.
I mean, television or anything.
I mean, we're talking like potentially like 3 or 4 years before we're in the ground. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Because we're just embarking right now on this design process. There's inevitably going to be all kinds of like right-of-way issues to hammer out, and even if they're easy to deal with in terms of like the owners. And let's say National Grid occupies a lot of this right away. Let's say they're amenable to doing everything we want them to do. We still actually have to, go through the administrative process of, consecrating right-of-way easements or right of access agreements, and that just takes time. And then there's the actual, getting this into a future fiscal year on the tip. And just one more thing, the reason why I was initially skeptical of the whole TIP process is, so we were talking about the Route 114 project earlier. That's right now a $36 million project. And there are other projects in the region. There's a project up in Salisbury to redo Route 1, and that's several $1 million. And so basically a lot of the TIP money is tied up in like a couple different projects over the next several years. And so the idea of throwing another project in the mix, like a rail trail, is kind of, it's heavy, And I guess the only sort of saving grace that's in there is I think there's some thought that if and when the federal infrastructure money ends up getting allocated and passed, that the various regions that get all this TIP funding will hopefully get an allocation through that funding stream and be able to have a little more money on hand to do more of the regional projects that are coming into the queue. So we'll just have to see. It's one of those things where it's no pun intended. It's a long and winding process.
John, just to give you an idea, I've got a roadway job that's gone through the project need form process. I'm looking at it right here on a different screen. The project need form was submitted 10/15/2015, and it's just getting approved for construction next spring.
Really?
And that's through the TIP. That was funded through the TIP process. Now it's a complex roadway, but it's sort of illustrative of what the process is, because you can be bogged down by right-of-way issues and whatnot. So that's just that's not a one size fits all, but that's kind of gives you an idea of possibly a potential timeline for something like this.
So there's all these requirements that you need to satisfy to achieve that grant, it sounds like. Is that correct?
There's a very strict process, step 1, step 2, kind of thing. I'd say the good news is that regardless of, like, we could end up going down this road with this engineering firm. They help us design, engineer some of this, and whatever we do with them can be usable even outside of the tip process, meaning like we could find another funding stream, or we're not married to the tip process per se, even though we're starting to go down that road. So
No pun intended.
that if it's going to take too long, or that the funding's not going to make itself available through the tip, and we want to fund it another way, we could certainly do that.
Yeah. There's nothing precluding you necessarily from breaking it into phasing. Say, all right, we'll change and let's start an entire corridor. We'll do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 as funding warrants.
Well, and technically this is a phase 1 because there's more that we want to do after this. So we are already at that point. So maybe, but to your point, John, maybe we even need to say we're breaking this up into smaller phases.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not familiar with the grant process, so this is very informative, and obviously it's part of our master plan and part of the subcommittee that I share with others. So thanks.
Yeah. Obviously, there's been a public will for something to some degree, to get something built at some point. Now you got to get the wheel spinning on it, get started somehow. So I guess that's where we are in the process, as I discern it. So, all right. If nobody else had anything relative to that, the other item I had on the agenda, and it was more of, we've discussed in the past, but maybe we should really kind of like kick it into a different gear, is the potential to get a website or update our website, and how can we possibly present an element matrix similar to what we've done, whether we present our findings that we've done for the Royal Crest examination, I forget what the other ones we've done. Someone remind me. Do we present those, or do we present a matrix presenting all the goals that we've identified per the master plan, and keep it an updated thing as like, all right, we've the ones we've identified, those have been completed and accomplished, what are underway and what are long term. I just wanted to get a discussion going on what people think, and because I think we should get something up, at least as a measure of our progress, so we have something to check back against, so day to day, month to month, year to year, where we were, where we are, type thing.
Where is it currently housed? Like, where do I get them in my Google Sheets. Do they exist somewhere else in a more master location, so to speak?
Our completed frameworks.
Yeah.
They exist, as far as I know, kind of back with the agenda and different meeting minutes as we presented them as reports to the select board and planning board. So they're out there, but they're a bit hidden. So I would think making them much more transparent for someone to see. Maybe kind of if we have a web page, here's the collection of what we've done so far, would make it much more accessible.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I didn't see it in the minutes, and I think it ties into what you're saying, John, although not exactly. I mentioned to Andrew last time because I was unable to make the meeting. So one of the things I discovered is that all the historical sites exist in town, and they're actually on the town website. And I think, Dan, you actually had something to do with this, that if you go onto the town map and click on these stars, it brings up pictures and information about all these historical sites in town, which I'm not going to lie, I found quite fascinating. And it was definitely an item for Stan and I to check off of our list off the master plan, because it was identified as an item on the plan and it's been completed. But I thought this kind of happens in a vacuum, if you will, that this is even there and has been completed. So I had spoken to Andrew about this prior to the meeting, of maybe doing something on the quarterly tax reports. When you get your quarterly tax and you get the newsletter, of putting something in there of things that we had accomplished. Because I know we spoke about doing like a sign saying this has been done by the master plan committee, but there's some soft things that happen that you can't put a stake in the ground and say, here it is. So maybe one of the ways to do it, it already exists. It costs nothing. It just requires someone to write up a blurb to say, hey guys, we're going to use this example of the statues, but we can use anything. Did you know that you can find all the historic statues on the map in the town? And here's how you get to it. It's already there on the town website. So here, 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 and here. And there you go. When we pop it out there and kind of get the word out that way of things we're accomplishing on our committee to the town in a venue that already exists. And yeah, I don't think that's exactly what you were asking, John, but I think it's in the same vein of.
Yeah, I mean, if my thought is that if that was something that we established, something we reviewed and it's been accomplished, we have an overall matrix with that one particular item, and within like the description, we'll write what's been done. We'll give has it been accomplished? Yes, and then we'll have like a written description, and within that written description, we can provide a link to that page with the map and whatnot. Just to give some additional information. At least that's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, so I think I would envision a little bit of both, because I think we need to have something to measure ourselves against, right? So we had a set of goals. We spent a lot of time doing that, and we want to knock them off as completed or where they stand. If there's an update, like, this is identified, but the school enhancement thing is going to push the youth center off to 2024, kind of beyond our purview, but we're looking at it and we're aware of it and we still know what's going on with it. But then I still think it's lost to the public if we put it on our website and bury it in agendas with links within our Excel spreadsheet. I would never find it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even know where it is today, and I'm on this committee. So,
I know, and that's what I'm getting at. Is I'd like to have a standalone web page with that information, not we take it out of what we had in the agenda, but we put it as a standalone, whether it's in a matrix, similar to what we've established previously. Is it? I'm like I said, I'm throwing it out there for discussion.
Can I just interject with one thing, John?
Yeah.
So first of all, as the committee is aware, I think they're aware, there is a master plan implementation committee page that's very resemblant of every other board or commission page that's out there. It has like a basic, mission statement. It's got me on there with Gene and Dan as staff contacts. It's got you all listed as members, and there's a few links on the left side to various things like the master plan itself and the agendas and the links to the agendas and minutes. So you all can either work with Dan or Sarah Brush. I introduced Sarah Brush to John via email, I believe. Sarah is the town's social media coordinator, but she's actually taken on more hours recently, and she's been put in charge of helping to update certain websites. So certainly she can be worked with to get some of this information up on web pages. We could also create a different page. Like we have various like Google sites that we use to update people on various projects. Like we have one for Royal Crest. We have one for Amazon. We have one for the senior center that were mainly used as pages for information prior to town meeting votes. Because in all those projects cases, there was like a town meeting vote to be had, but we're still using them. Like in the case of the Amazon page, we have construction updates on there, and we have information related to Crest and the different things that are going before the planning board. So certainly you could work with her and or Dan to help produce one of those pages to get that information. And then the last thing I'll say is Sarah is also now doing the quarterly newsletters that Holly was referencing, where if you wanted to put a blurb in there, a line or two about things that are going on with the master plan implementation committee or certain projects that have happened that you want to reference, she is going to be authoring those updates from here on out. So you can also communicate with her on that effort as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at our webpage, our collective, the Master Plan Implementation Committee webpage, and on the left, as Andrew was mentioning, we have, for lack of a better term, tabs. There's a link to the final master plan, which actually I think we should probably label that as the 2018 master plan, just for reference purposes. But there's we have a tab for our agendas. We have a tab for our minutes. There's one for subscribe for updates. As I see it, I'd like to have something on that same area a tab for, I don't know how we phrase it, master plan implementation committee updates, you know, open suggestions for wording. But basically something that you click on it and it brings up our framework. And again, I don't know if we'd want to do one overreaching framework like we've done when we first established our committee and went through all the goals and, you know, we prioritize things. Or do we want to present the individual frameworks that we've gone through to this point? Or do we want to put everything up there? I mean, I think that might be a lot of information, but at least getting something up there shows something tangible that what we've accomplished, and we can keep updating as warranted.
Holly, regarding the minutes, your report about history and the markers did appear in the minutes.
Oh, sorry, I must have missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, it did appear in the minutes, and you know, but for sure, reports like that, and I think it says, the last line says, thus it was safe to conclude that the element was accomplished. So, you know, how do you move that out of the, you know, the clutter of minutes into something like John is
Oh,
talking
sorry. Yeah.
about?
No. I know that was in the minutes. I meant more of the, because I spoke to Andrew and Stan about it prior because I knew I wasn't going to be there. Transferring that into like the update that goes out to the town, right? Because somebody worked hard on that. I'm guessing it might have even been you, Dan, who worked really hard on that. And it's just out there as this resource for the town that nobody knows is there, unless you know exactly where to get it, which it's kind of buried in the way, you know, it's.
Oh, sure. This gets buried in minutes that aren't likely read by the public.
John, can I make a suggestion? I wonder, can we sort of take this as a homework assignment for the next meeting to look at both what I would term the public page, which is accessible by everybody, accessible by the public from the town website, and to look at the master plan implementation committee page or pages that are on the town controlled website. You can't access that page unless you have permission. We have permission, but the public doesn't.
Okay, so you're talking about the Google setup we have with all the documents.
Yeah, the Google Docs. And I think some of those documents, perhaps some, not all, but some perhaps should be brought forward onto the public page, or that the information that's contained in those docs maybe should be, somebody should write a summary of what it's. I was thinking of the Excel spreadsheets. Somebody should write maybe a summary or something that says what that Excel spreadsheet shows or says.
And I think that's where, if you have the reports that went to the select board, what had, because that those Excel sheets were appendixes or attachments.
Yes, I agree. But I was thinking perhaps identified by project or area, for instance, Royal Crest. Somebody, who knows? Somebody may say, what does the master plan implementation committee think about Royal Crest? You know, so on the public page, if they scan it, they would find Royal Crest, and then they would find what we think about the project as it's proposed or something like that. Anyway, as I said, I think I need a little time to think about it, and also to be able to look at those two pages or those two sites and think about what could be moved onto the public page.
Yeah, so I'm like looking right now. So we did a framework evaluation for the downtown master improvements plan.
Yeah, okay, there's another area.
So I mean, that's something. You know, do we basically take that, clean it up, and put that on a you know, you go to the master plan implementation committee page, and that's, you know, we have a tab for that.
Yeah, you'd find that.
Yeah, and that one I don't think has gone into one of the quarterly reports to the select board or planning board yet. I think the timing of that one will probably get picked up in the next report that you do, John.
Yeah.
So I think once that gets attached as appendix, then it becomes something that, an attachment, George, to your point, it's the whole spreadsheet you could attach, and it's something that was published at that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, do we want to do something relatively easy just to get our feet wet and just publish the frameworks that we've completed to this point, just so we have something on our website? Or
do you want an answer to that tonight?
No. I want to, like I said, I want to brainstorm and get the thought process rolling. We don't. I mean,
yeah.
If I could offer something, so what we can do is we can set up like another, not like a whole other Google Drive per se, but like, I think someone was mentioning this, like the town has a bunch of documents that are publicly accessible, certain, legacy documents for various purposes. So we could set up a public facing Google Drive for the Master Plan Implementation Committee, link to it on your town web page, the one where you guys are listed as members, and it could be just a link that says, MPIC public documents. And there could be various folders with what they are. The one folder could be like your quarterly progress reports. Another folder could be your framework documents. Another folder could be something else. And you could sort of fill it in as necessary, but it would just be a one-off sort of like place where you could have your documents housed and anybody could look at those things. Now, would that be the most like dynamic way to display the information? No, but it would definitely get your stuff in the light of day as far as.
And I think that's a quick and dirty, well, not dirty, but I think that's actually a clean organization. At least we have it all in one place, and it's accessible. It'll be organized. If you organize it, correctly, it should be fairly self-explanatory. If you set up your directory structure, properly.
John, I will make one last pitch just for using the format of the frameworks that was part of the quarterly reports, just because I know the format, I put formatting onto those reports, which I'm assuming you'll probably have to do too, to make it a little more consumable.
Yep.
Rather than just linking to our kind of working version in Google Docs.
Oh yeah, no,
that would
I
be
think they need to be cleaned up.
Because I'd save them as PDFs so they could get printed out and get attached to the report, so that way it was a more consumable attachment for people to read. So that's the only reason I'm kind of pushing that.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I mean, we're not under the gun to have anything up, but at this, I think that our next evolution is to get something publicly shareable and acceptable, that I think only helps illustrate what we do, and get the word out there to people who want the information. Not everybody wants it, but those who want to seek it will find it, and and hopefully give them the information they're looking for and allay any fears they might have or whatever. What I'll ask Andrew, only because I'm having difficulty finding everything within the drive right now, but maybe I'll work with you off on the side to find the stuff that we've completed, the matrices that we've completed.
What I was going to suggest is maybe between now and the next meeting, what we'll do is I'll work with you on getting together with Sarah Brush to get some of this stuff up there. And then once there's something for the rest of the committee to react to, we'll send them the link, and then it can be a topic of discussion at the next meeting. But we'll certainly not post anything that's like on the public page that's going to be like controversial. It'll just be public documents and organized in a certain way. And maybe we'll need to reorganize it based on folks' feedback, but we can certainly get something up and running prior to the next meeting so we can have a discussion about it and, improve on that in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Sound good?
That works for me.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
All right. Let me just see if we got any. I don't think we got any comments. Just checking right now. Gmail. I see nothing. So, okay, that's good. I was like, I lost. There we go. Sorry, switched wrong screen. All right. So if anybody has, unless anybody has anything else they want to add, I guess we're. Go ahead, Andrew.
John, just a few, just really quick hitting new business items just for everyone's edification. So on tonight's select board meeting, we have 2 project updates. One for the Lake Chickwick Watershed Plan update. So Dan will be presenting that with a consultant that we work with from Wesson and Sampson. The plan is now complete. So I encourage people to there's a direct link on tonight's select board agenda to that plan. But there's also if you can find the plan also on the town's website. I'm happy to send it out if anybody's having a hard time finding it. But thank you to Dan for helping to run that process. And I just encourage everyone to take a look at that. There's some recommendations on how we continue to sort of protect our watershed and our water supply or Lake Chickwick. So that was a great process. And then we've also have an update on the Route 125 corridor plan. That is being discussed tonight as well. The plan is done. We haven't, I don't know if that's up. I don't think it's up online yet, although it's linked to on the agenda. And I encourage folks to take a look at that plan as well when they get a chance. The idea overall of doing area plans is a master plan strategy. So the fact that we got the plan done at all is definitely, a master plan goal and priority. But then there's several strategies and recommendations in the plan itself to help us sort of think about potential corridor safety improvements, transportation infrastructure wise, and also some zoning issues that we can look at to help make the corridor a little more cohesive, if you will. And there's some interesting little test fits in there. Test fits being sort of like under current zoning, what could you do on certain parcels that are currently not occupied? And what might you be able to do if you were to change zoning in a certain way? So it looks at some hypotheticals. So that was a great project. And thank you also to Dan and Jean for their participation in that project. And then lastly, and a piece of good news, and we haven't really pushed this out yet because we were kind of under an embargo not to say anything, but I think it's public and we're allowed to say something now. We were successful in getting a grant from the state for $75,000 from what's called the Housing Choice Program. We're a housing choice community, which basically means we've been successful under a number of criteria for the creation of affordable housing to do some rezoning of our downtown. So we'll use the funding to bring in a consultant to help us rezone the downtown. And actually, that is also a master plan strategy, and it was a strategy or a recommendation that came out of our downtown master plan, downtown improvement master plan process. So we'll be able to use that funding to sort of look at downtown and do some a holistic underlying zoning for that area. So we'll look forward to getting started on that soon, hopefully. I think that's it on general updates for me. I don't know, Dan, do you have anything else?
Next meeting? Can we set the meeting date for the next meeting?
We absolutely can. John, did you have a follow-up question before we do that?
So yeah, just relative to the 125 corridor study, I checked on it, read up on it because I had all the spare time in the world. Some people read magazines, I read reports. Is that something that we potentially want to evaluate as a group? Understanding that it's a corridor study, and it's more conceptual than it is design at this point. But because it's not only transportation but zoning as well. Is that something we potentially want to evaluate using our framework at this juncture?
So you could do that. I'm just going to add the caveat that we're not going to change it. Not to be like an obstinate jerk about it, but it's just one of those things where it's like, we went through the process, kind of like we've had this discussion to some degree with the master plan, like how, in some respects, things change and you can pivot to what strategy or direction you want to go in, depending on what the situation is currently in town. But, we did go through sort of a holistic process with the plan itself. So, like, if you were to come out with some disastrous review of the plan for whatever reason, and I don't anticipate that you would, but if you did, I'm not sure what direction we would take from there.
Yeah, I'm looking at it as more as, all right, is what they're proposing, does that knock off something off of, it's not to take away from anything they do. It's just, how does that dovetail into what our goals are, and does it meet certain ones at this juncture?
Yeah, I think there's value. If nothing else, it's a great. I think it distills information into a framework we're going to continue to reuse for people to consume. I think there's value in that. So these studies are big, they're huge, right? And I think at least if we look at it again with our objective lens of the framework, that why it's not a solution or the end answer for anyone. It's one more piece of the information pie for people to kind of go, oh, okay, I get that, agree or not, but at least I get the evaluation.
And I think it gets us all on the same page of understanding the scope of these major initiatives that we're in no way going to influence, but again, can understand how they cross-reference against the master plan itself.
And that might be one where we.
Yeah, I sort of agree. Just go down the 103 strategies or whatever it is, and how many of them are satisfied by the 125 quarter plan?
I would actually suggest that if we were to evaluate it, that we break out into our own our little subgroups there, and so we can break it down a little bit easier, and everybody's got smaller bites to chew. To process. Obviously some are the transportation evaluation is going to be significantly greater than, say, open space.
Affordable housing.
Yeah, exactly. But at least we can break it down a little bit, because there's a lot of information there, infrastructure wise and zoning. There's some big potential for zoning changes that I saw. Maybe I'll put it, for the next meeting, we'll put it on the agenda as, to present it, or present the link, and then we can figure out if we want to pursue it and break it down from there. Again, it's we have time, and then Dan, is there anything in because I tuned into the presentation for the Watershed master plan or updated plan the other night. Is that something we want to evaluate in any way, shape, or form, Dan?
Whether or not you evaluate it is up to you guys. It certainly arises out of some of the goals in the master plan and has recommendations that relate to or echo the goals of the master plan. It's certainly relevant. Whether or not you put it through the framework is up to you guys.
Okay. Maybe we'll present that, and maybe we can work with you off to the side, just to present the salient points of that are coming there, and figure out if that's something we do, if we need to do any additional evaluation on our end, or if it's just for informational purposes, so we collectively know what the gist of what they came up with is, because it is, it's a little more structured than, say, the 125 corridor study. This is what we're recommending that gets done, pending funding. So
John, as we just as a suggestion, as we consider what to list as accomplishments, and I'm listening to this desire to evaluate different plans. I think it's appropriate for our discussion for this website, that we review the mission statement one more time, and that we all read it carefully and make sure we don't overstep what we're supposed to be doing. How much of our purpose as a master plan implementation committee is to make sure this town and the leadership of the town is following the approved master plan guidelines. How much of that drifts into, or very easily drifts into, evaluation of plans that are laid out. I'm just not sure how much of that is our job.
Yeah, no, it's at least as I, when I'm throwing it out there, is, there are these plans that have been brought about. Is it worthy? Is it within our purview to review them? And if so, do we review them in context? Is there enough there to review in context to seeing, does our evaluation make it, fit in with our mission of evaluating projects to ensure that they are, working to further the master plan, or work within the tenets of the master plan.
I don't know. I just I for one have to go back and read that mission statement again, and make sure that I'm limiting my input to what the mission says.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm not. The last thing I want to do is basically create work for us. And say, oh, it's out here, so let's do something with it. Does it make sense? Is it worthy of our review? Is there a benefit for us to review something and weigh in and evaluate it?
Well, sure. And given what Andrew said about our reviewing of a 125 corridor study, what if we found problems according to our standards with it? Andrew indicated that there wasn't much of a chance of changing that plan. So why would we get into it in such fine detail? I'm just urging a review of the mission so that we don't find ourselves in mission creep.
No, absolutely valid. So. Absolutely, and it's good. It's good to make sure that we keep our aim where it needs to be. So
that's
very good.
Hey John, I don't want to be rude. We have a hard stop at 6:30, so I just wanted to give you the heads up on that.
Yeah. No, I said I think we're winding down to where we need to be anyway. So I was going to say, unless anybody has any other additional topics, I think we've hit everything that was on the agenda. So,
and I think we do need to identify the next meeting date. That's the only other thing I would say. Yeah. So, and then next month we're getting into holiday season with Thanksgiving there. So I would say either the week of the 15th or the 29th is where you want to be.
Yeah, I'm partial to the 15th just because I'm just looking at my schedule. That last week it starts to get really busy. Mm-hmm. But you guys tell me what works, and if it has to be the 29th, I can make that work too. So
I can do either one.
Yeah, either is okay with me.
15 sounds good.
All right, so let's aim for the 15th then.
Okay, and it'll creep up on us kind of fast. So just note, John, that you'll want to have like your agenda figured out, the week of the 8th.
Yep.
So we'll be back at it soon enough.
Yeah. It's only 3 weeks away.
Right. These things, they fly by. So, all right, I'll send a revised calendar invitation for the 15th.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll ask if anybody wants to make. Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'll ask if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I will do so.
I will second.
All right. So let's take a roll call here. Jay Dowd.
Yes.
Meredith Barnes Cook,
Yes.
Holly Williams,
Yes.
George Keller,
Yes.
Kelly Cormier,
Yes.
Sean McDonough,
Yes.
and me. Yes. John Strauss. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Take
Thank you,
care, all.
All right. Good night.
Okay.
Happy Halloween.
Night all.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.